you so much for hanging out tonight. My name is Stella. Saint Stella, if you're nasty. I don't know. I shouldn't. I'm doing it. I said it. It's too late. Doing it. Welcome to my new experiment. I am trying to do a bit of a hangout chat show. I am lucky enough to know so many awesome people, and I think that, you know, it would be awesome to share the talents of all these amazing people. So the way this show is going to go is that I'm just going to bring them on. I'm going to ask them some questions about art. We're going to talk about where the inspiration comes, how they make things, where they're making things, what maybe they find hard or is a struggle in making stuff. And, you know, all this kind of stuff really interests me. So I hope that, you know, it interests you too. If you're hanging out in chat tonight, please feel free to join the conversation, throw in some questions, join in. This is meant to be a true conversation. So without any more ado, I will bring in my guest tonight. Woo! Hello! How's it going?
Hello. Good.
I guess what I'm going to do is start by introducing these two beautiful faces that you're looking at right now. I will read their bios with a little extra St. Stella flair, and and then we'll jump right in. So this beauty at the top here with the luscious locks is the wonderful Alval. And despite the pandemic, Alval has enjoyed a meteoric rise in the Canadian comedy scene. In 3 short years since Al came out as trans, she has made appearances at Just Relax, JFL Northwest, Off JFL Viewfest, and has taped stand-up sets for CBC Gem, which is a big deal. CBC is our national broadcaster out here in Canada, in case you didn't know. And that program was called The New Wave of Stand-Up, and you can check it out. You can find her on that. She's been on Crave TV. Oh, is this the one coming up, the stand-up show with John Doerr?
Yeah. So I don't know if it's out yet, but it will be. It will be.
She's the host of her own weekly Stream of Consciousness podcast, Podgis, which is one of my favorite podcasts. I'm not even just saying it. She's a graduate of Second City's Conservatory program, La Tu Fucking Da, and one part of improv rock musical duo Overdude. There's no wonder this multi-talented whirlwind was voted by her peers as, get this, 2020's Breakout Comic of the Year. In the what?
In the male category.
Excuse me. Really, I love it. Really sticking it to the fellows, it says officially in her bio. Between her boundlessly high energy, vulnerable, clever, insightful perspective, and spontaneous, silly delivery, Alval is surely a dynamic, exciting entertainer, no fucking doubt, whose charm you will surely be unable to resist. And after all those swears, I should announce that tonight's stream will be, we'll have some adult language in it, so be prepared. We are all adults here, perhaps having adult beverages, and we're just having an adult chat. So, you know, if you have kids or anything, maybe put on your headphones. That's all. It's all good. It's all good. And then my second guest here, who I have to say first off, drew this amazing little comic of me that you're seeing in the corner, and I'm in love with it, and I use it everywhere, and everybody was like, who drew that? Because that is you. And I'm like, I know, because he's the best. And I cried a little. So Daniel J. Schneider, also known as Smashhead, is a comic artist, an illustrator, and an art teacher. Dan explores a wide variety of subjects and styles in his work while keeping his signature tight line work. You'll have to tell me what that means. Dan is also the proud owner of Hobbs, the hardest working and most beautiful corgi in comics. Hopefully we'll get a little Hobbs cameo at some point. We'll see. Dan is a big believer of inclusivity and creating a welcome, supportive environment for the future of comics. Because after all, I love this line, diversity creates beauty. And the future, my friends, is beautiful. Yeah! So these are my guests tonight, and I'm so excited. I was saying this just before we started, that 2 things I cannot do. I cannot draw a straight line with a ruler. I've never been good at visual art at all. And I also my comedy falls flat. I try and be funny sometimes, but usually I just get the like, so I'm really excited to talk about like where your inspiration comes from, how you do the art that you do. But first I'm just going to open the floor real quick. If there's anything I missed in your intros or anything you want to say, Val, say hello.
Hi everybody watching on Twitch. I'm tuned in too, so I'm tuned in to you guys watching us. So everybody be on your best goddamn behavior.
Don't though.
Now that we can swear.
Yeah, you can.
Or take the Lord's name in vain, that counts.
Yeah. I mean, sure.
Yeah. And if it makes you feel any better, I know you said that your jokes get dead silence, but like, you know, I can't crush it every single time. I get stares, especially from my family. God.
Yeah, honestly, that was one of my favorite podcasts of yours when you were talking about like being in a car with your giant family. We'll talk about that too.
Yeah.
And them all just being like, okay. Amazing. Dan, did I miss anything that you want to say about yourself before we get into the nitty-gritty?
No, you did an awesome introduction of me. Much better introduction than I can ever do of myself. I tend to stumble over my words. I'm just like super psyched to be here and really like feel like I'm in really good company.
Oh, thanks. Honestly, that like means a lot. I do legitimately, like I had a very lonely pandemic. I don't know about you two. I don't know about everybody watching. It was really hard. And the thing I missed, one of the things I missed the most was like those after show times or those times hanging out with friends where you're just like jamming on like what you're making and what you're creating next. And I feel like the lack of those conversations actually like resulted in a lack of being creative. Because for me, I'm all about like jamming on people and being like, oh, I'm thinking about doing this thing. What do you think? And having that feedback. So doing this is really great. So I appreciate you for that. So let's start with the basics. Both of you, whoever wants to jump in, or I can like direct, but whatever. I'd like to start just getting to know each other a little bit. Tell me about where you're from, where you are right now in the world, and what you're sort of most excited about making right now.
Dan, floor is yours, please.
Okay, so I grew up in the heart of rural Alberta, so I am basically everything you expect of the stereotype of rural Alberta, which is Canada's Texas. My family comes from agriculture. We are farmers from like as far back as you can look in our family, and then there was me. Now I draw comics. My family was very supportive of it just because I think going from one industry where you make no money to another industry where you make no money was a very easy shift. But yeah, I live here in Alberta. I love like everything that I do. And I've got a bunch of, like in the last 2 weeks, I got a bunch of cool news that I can't yet share, but I'm very excited to share, and we'll hopefully be able to say something sooner rather than later. Otherwise, I've just been excited to get back into my burlesque drawings because I missed those dearly, and super excited about getting back into teaching in person. So last week, I just taught our first camp back in person since the pandemic started. So it was a camp full of like young, artsy, creative kids all looking to express themselves and like get all of their feelings out there, whether through improv, comedy, writing, drawing, art, whatever. And it was just amazing to be a part of that. It always like at the end, I'm just like full of emotion and love and just happiness and excitement for like doing more and helping these kids get a step up in their future.
That's so cool. Do you teach, is it sort of like a community center thing, or like, is it like a scholarship thing, or how do you, and what ages? I'm curious.
So we've been doing our comic classes for 7 years now, and that was its own separate thing, but we were always subcontractors of this group called Youth Right here in Alberta. And Youth Right's been around for like 20 plus years. Gail Sabat, who is in charge of it and puts the whole thing together, is like an incredible woman who puts on these week-long camps where usually the kids would be there for the whole week and spend the night, and they would do all of these different creative things and learn from different writers and like professionals in the industry. And so we did that again here, but this was the first year where Drawn to Write, instead of being a subcontractor and being its own thing, we joined forces with them. So now we're part of Youth Write. And so we'll be doing 3 camps this year. And that was the first one back, which is the Youth Write proper. And so I taught 2 classes each day. My first class was 10 to 13-year-olds, and then my later class was 13 to 16-year-olds. And each of those kids would have 4 classes a day. And they were like things like high five for the first 5, so hooking your readers on the first 5 pages of your story. There was an improv class where the teacher gave the kids a setting and a bunch of character roles that needed to be filled. And then from then on in the class, they spent the entire class in character developing a story together.
That's so fun.
It was, oh yeah, it's like, it is everything I hope and wish for anyone growing up, to have a community and like a group of friends that you can meet and learn from, because you learn so much more than just like the lessons you learn of like, this is how we make a comic. You also learn how to like make bonds and friendship, and like it's really where you start to see people figuring that thing out of like, family is what you make, not the family that you're necessarily given. And some of us are blessed by good families, but others aren't. And you see in those classes where those kids that need to reach out to someone and need that kind of like that connection in the world, they suddenly start to find it and they start to flourish and they come outside of themselves and really get to express who they are and their feelings. So yeah, it's super inspiring.
That's so cool. And being able to do that through art, like it's so cool for these kids. Yeah, amazing.
I know sorry to interrupt, but I just wanted to point out to grown adults like Stella and I, the idea of a whole class of role playing is, I mean, that's exactly what Dungeons and Dragons is. So that has this sort of generational appeal, like it's universal. So I think that sounds awesome.
I was definitely having a conversation with somebody the other day about how like it's so important for adults to be able to play as well. You know, like we forget like what it is to pretend, to play, to act things out that aren't like in reality. And to me, that's like really important. Getting off topic already. Alval, where are you in the world? I know, but tell everybody else where you come from, where you are now, and what your sort of like focus is right now.
I originally hail from the suburbs outside of Toronto in Whitby, Ontario.
Sorry.
What's that?
I said I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I know. They call it Whiteby. So I had a pretty privileged upbringing. Like my family, my dad's a surgeon, so I never was wanting for anything, and I just grew up really lucky. And then I had this thing inside of me my whole life that I projected a bro-y sort of persona. I started stand-up when I was 18 years old. It was something that I knew in high school that's what I wanted to do. I told everybody, I'm named after my dad. So it was one of those things that growing up, everybody was like, you're going to do this. You're going to be the next Algis, right? And of course, just to appease everyone, I was like, yeah, of course. But then in high school, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the opposite. And I'm going to heal people with laughter.
I actually love that.
How's that broken leg? Can I tell you a joke? See if I can fix your MCL? Anyways, I'm dragging it on. But basically, comedy is what I've always wanted to do. I have a deep need for validation and everyone else's approval. And this is kind of the route that I've taken to go for it. A bit odd, considering it takes a long time for people to start laughing at your jokes, to start getting any good. And right now things are going well. So things are going good. I came out 3 years ago as gender fluid, and I've started transitioning. I haven't really made an official announcement yet because I'm taking it real slow. low dosages of everything. So I've still got raging male testosterone pumping in my blood. And yeah, I feel like I keep getting off topic. This is
literally what we're here for. We're just
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So at the sacrifice, at the cost of being succinct, I am I'm a trans comedian, and things are going well for me right now. And I'm going to be on TV on August 23rd. So
that's
check it
so
out.
Exciting. Who still has TV? But whatever, we can watch it on the internet, right?
I know, that's the thing. When I shared it, I got so many likes, but I was like, probably 2% of you are going to tune into this. It's you have to like do it on a schedule. Who does that? You know, people are like, just let me binge it.
I'm sure we can go online after and watch the VOD, as the kids say, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm a kid. I'm very young. Okay. Okay. Here's the thing. Here's a question that I love, and I ask people this a lot because I think this like varies a whole lot between, you know, styles of art and where we come from as artists and sort of what inspires us, etc., etc. But I'd love to know a little bit about your artistic process. So where and how you get ideas, where generally inspiration strikes, and I'd love to know a little bit about the practical part of your work. Like, where do you sit? You know, where do you get ideas? What do you give yourself a schedule of an hour every day I'm going to write jokes, or I'm going to work on my drawing or my shading today? Or do you give yourself a schedule, or is it willy-nilly, like sometimes it strikes in the shower, sometimes it strikes on a walk? Like, do you have a process that you stick to or try to stick to? Or what is that process like for you? I'm very curious to know, because God knows it's different for everyone. Again, whoever wants to jump in.
Go ahead, Dan. Kick it off.
Okay. I find weirdly that's one of the hardest questions for me, just because I'm both all over the place, but also not. Like, so when I'm given a task, so like right now, one of the projects that I'll be announcing hopefully soon, they've given myself and the guy I'm working with very specific ideas. And for that, it's just learning a process of going back to your rules and going back to the systems that help you like create a story. And that's like what we teach in the classes, is that like inspiration, especially when you make something professional, you need to like create inspiration. You can't wait for inspiration. And so it's just figuring out, like, you're given a task and you have to figure out, for me at least, I have to figure out either the story or the beauty in the thing. And so I work best when I'm scheduled. There are definitely things that just like pop into my head and I'm like, okay, I need to put this down, or I would love to explore this idea further. But I'm mostly guided by whatever tasks I need to do. So I'm off by 3 weeks simply because of the classes. But like every week I do one burlesque drawing. So this week I'm going to have to catch up by doing 3 burlesque drawings. And then every week I work on a comic page. Every week I had set aside time to be like, okay, I have to hunt down jobs. And then based on the new schedule of the things I have coming up, I will have to put those into the schedule as well. So I'm very, like, I guess, regimented in that, just like the inspiration strikes from whatever the need is at the time. So if it's burlesque, it's like the movement. I want to capture the movement. I want to capture the moment. I want to capture the personality. I want to capture the performer. And then with comics, I need to capture the story. So it's all focusing in on the story. And then as for where I work, it's right where I'm sitting. So I surround myself by a bunch of things that keep me going. And then I usually also use the carrot on a stick. So like behind me is my little geeky models that I paint. And so I only am allowed to paint or create new models based on how much work I've finished. And if I haven't finished enough work, then I don't get the carrot.
I love that you like have your own rewards set for yourself. Like that's really valuable. I'm bad at that because I'll try and do something like that. Be like, well, if you sit down and do this for 4 hours, you can do X. You're the easiest person to cheat on though, right? Like You know, when there's
Oh
nobody
yeah.
else to like be accountable to, I find it, harder. I try, but yeah. So you have your days like, I'm gonna spend 2 hours on this, commission project. I'm gonna spend an hour on the burlesque drawing. I'm gonna
Yeah.
spend, your 4 hours on stream or whatever that I know you do. It's pretty
Yeah.
regimented for you.
Yeah, and it's finding something inside because I can get hyper focused once I start a job.
Hmm.
So as long as I can find something to hyper focus on, so sometimes it'll be like I'll give myself a challenge with an art piece where it's just like I want to, like you said, like today, all of my energy in this drawing is going to focus in on lighting,
Hmm.
and I'm going to do the best lighting that I can, and I'm going to push myself to do something I haven't done before. And so that's where all my energy will focus and get me to that point. But like the distraction thing is huge and you constantly have to keep it in check. When I first started doing this professionally, um, a long time ago, I think I was 18.
Oh wow.
I had like a bunch of video games and I love playing video games. But I quickly realized, like after a month, that I was like, oh yeah, I will be sitting here drawing, and then I'll go like, I could draw or I could play like for 15 minutes because inspiration hasn't struck.
Mm.
And then those 15 minutes become 3 hours, and that excuse happens all the time. So I sold all of my video games, and it wasn't until probably 5 years ago I finally was like, you know what, I can control myself enough to have a video game system in the house. And so I do. And it mostly is just like right now I have a Switch and it's a workout machine.
Oh,
Every
that's
once in
good.
a while I play video games on it, but mostly I use it to work out. And that's about it.
I mean, I find like for me, I try really hard to have one day a week. It doesn't always happen, but one day work a week where I don't have to do work. I'm in school right now, so I try and have either Saturday or Sunday right now because I have school 5 days a week. Um,
Yeah.
to be a day because I think we need that too as artists and creators
Oh,
and
yeah.
whatever is to clear because we'll go in more into this too, but like it's hard to just, we want to make our art our work, right? But we still need to like free our minds, not to be too hippy dippy about it, but have those
Oh,
days where we
yeah.
see our friends, have one too many cocktails, go for a walk in the park, whatever it is that like does it for you to relax. Like I think that's really important too.
Oh,
But
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
That's like the stuff like the burlesque stuff. It's not a job, it's just something
Oh.
I'm doing as an expression. And I think it's like you said, it's important to schedule in like you need time to express yourself. You need time to, especially in art, you need to do what you love and find a way to make that work, even if it's just like I'll do a little bit of what I don't love and then I give myself a little bit of time to do what I love.
Yeah.
Because it's really important, because otherwise what are you doing it for if you don't love it?
Yeah, and
There's
there's
a lot
always
easier jobs out there.
there is, but like if they don't make you happy, I don't know. Again, that's another topic. But I was talking recently,
Yeah.
Carlos Luna, who's a RPG creator. Thanks to like I heard through Hope. Anyways, another RPG channel. He was talking about the work around the work. So the things that you have
Yeah.
to do that supplement what it is you love to do. So I love, creating and talking and telling stories. I don't necessarily love the organization or the whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like you have to also schedule that. You have to
Hmm.
schedule.
It's,
Anyways, you
yeah.
know what I mean.
It's the worst part about being a creative person
Yeah,
is anything that is not doing creative stuff is you're just like, ugh.
yeah. I don't want to do the emails and the whatever, but you got to do it to make it happen. I'm gonna bring Alval back on. That was, and we're gonna switch it up. So sort of like same question, I guess. I don't even remember what was the question. Oh, your artistic process. How do you get ideas? When does inspiration strike? When do you work? Are you scheduled about it? Tell me about that, and we'll switch your beautiful faces on screen.
Um, so I'm a bit jealous of Dan's discipline
Yeah.
because, as you know, I touch on this every so often in my podcast that I need an adult. I need an adult in my life. I need someone to hold me accountable because I've grown very terrible at doing so. And quick side note, Dan's whole like video game, selling all his video games. I, in an act of frustration, did that with my Xbox 360 years ago, and I sold all of it. And then I discovered PC gaming. So it was completely futile. And I was left wishing I still had my Xbox so I could play things like Guitar Hero and Gears as I'm sitting here playing Fortnite and Rocket League and shit. So really, this is, I think it's a gift and a curse at this point, my lack of discipline, because my inspiration comes a lot from just being present and winging it until I touch on something that sticks and that I like and that gets a reaction or kind of surprises myself. I love staying in the moment and keeping things that way. So, I mean, detrimentally, as soon as I'm expected to say, like, write a set list for a showcase, or as soon as my set stops belonging just to me and I have to do it to achieve something or to audition for like a festival or something like that, I lose all passion for it. I lose all inspiration. I lose all joy and drive. It just, because there's an impulse that takes over and I start to care way more about how it's perceived from the outside, and it stops being about me and my art. So it's a very precarious balance that I have between I just want to be wild and free and just roam around, and I try my best to retain that, but I really do believe that inspiration would come a lot easier if I did regiment things a little bit more and sit down and schedule some time. I have whiteboards in my room filled with messy, sloppy notes of jokes that I thought of either in the shower or as I was dozing off in bed. And I'll write down like 3 quick words or something just to like jog my memory about something that I thought of and was like,
I'm so funny.
Yeah, that's good. And maybe if the character farted. But there was one more thing I wanted to mention. Inspiration is such a weird, interesting thing to me because, of course, it can strike at any time. But I also have, you realize over the course of this pandemic, well, at least I did, just how I talk to myself in those quiet moments when I'm not placating myself with video games or TV or alcohol or company, when it's just quiet and it's just me and my thoughts. And I started to really realize how negatively I talk to myself and kind of what exists in that space. And in those quiet moments, i.e. when I'm just showering or when I'm going to sleep and my brain is running at still 100 miles per hour because I've spent the whole day running away from it and it's catching up to me, there's a lot that happens in that moment. And so it's all of the things. It's good and it's bad and it's self-deprecating, but it tends to be, especially lately, where I've mined a lot of my material.
I find that that's a lot. That's a common thread in comedy, of like self-deprecating comedy, and sometimes it can be really good, but I've found that sometimes it's too much.
Yeah.
Just for me, like my comedy like I will talk about your podcast and how much I love it, but sometimes people think they're being so funny by being like, I suck, I suck, I suck. But sometimes you don't want to just keep hearing that over and over. It has to be something like, okay, but give me more. Like, tell me why that's funny. Because just being like, I suck in itself is like, yeah, everyone kind of thinks that. That doesn't make me laugh. That makes me sad. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just me, but.
No, I think you're absolutely right, because there are examples where I can tell, and I'll listen back to a set where I will have the audience on my side until a point, and it's like it's always good to make fun of yourself at the very beginning, to humanize yourself and to gain a little bit of trust and camaraderie from the audience. You don't think that you're better than them, you're one of them, right?
Yeah.
But if you overemploy it, if that's all you do, eventually they do start to feel uncomfortable, and they're like, because the audience is kind of complicit in the whole thing.
Yeah.
By validating you and laughing at you. So when you keep hammering away at yourself, they start to feel guilty of being a part of this. So
yeah, about like yourself, like flagellation, you know, like after a moment, it's like, okay, And we just got an amazing question from Hope, and I'm going to bring on Daniel for this one too. And this is, I guess, for both of you, and I think for all of us as artists, one of the hardest things I think for all of us is to review our own work after, to look at our own work.
Oh yeah.
How is that for you? Do you have a thing where you're like, okay, every time I do a set, I'm going to go back and listen to make sure it was good, or to see what worked and what didn't, or with your art, or do you try not to do that, or is that part of your process as well, is like looking at what you did with a certain amount of critique?
I don't know if you've got anything to go, Val or Al, right now, but I'm good to answer if you need a second.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, I like, especially being a teacher really helped me with that, because one of the biggest things for me, like when I started to become a teacher and wanted to teach what I'm doing, is there's a big difference between like just naturally having something come out of you and knowing why it's working. And so once you know why something works, I think it's really, really important to look back on your own stuff and constantly be self-reflective of your own work, to see whether or not, like, did this work? Did that work? How did what did I fail on? What did I succeed on? And so like every piece of artwork that I have, like I have one sitting here that I just finished last night. And almost all the time, at least for me, I don't know if it would be the same for you, Al, just because, again, like comedy is so in such a different realm from art. But when I finish my art pieces, I often see them as the construction. So I see the lines that put them together. So it doesn't feel complete to me at that point. So I almost always, in an ideal world, I give myself a day. I'll put the art piece away for a day, go to sleep, and then I'll come back to it, because then I'll have fresh eyes and I can look at it objectively from the point of like, I'm no longer seeing those construction lines. I'm no longer seeing the ways I put it together because it's not fresh. And so then, yeah, I really like to like dissect my own work, because I think as an artist of any kind, and I'm sure both of you can confirm or deny this with me, but I always say we're kind of like sharks, where a shark needs to keep moving forward to get enough oxygen to live, and artists need to do the same. Like, artists don't have a peak. We don't have a certain point where our body just gives out on us. We can constantly improve and constantly create. And if we're constantly looking to improve our artwork, we're going to be constantly climbing that mountain. Whereas if you get to a point with your artwork, whatever it is, and you're just like, done, I am perfect. Like, I cannot improve. Yeah. I have reached the top. Then if you've reached the top, the only way you can come is down. Yeah. Like, and I see that happen with a lot of artists. Like, there's a lot of comic artists and just illustrators that I really, really respect. But at a certain point, some of them have reached a point where they're just like, no, I'm perfect, I'm untouchable. And suddenly their art takes a turn because they're not self-reflective. They're not looking back to see if they made a mistake. If you think you're perfect, you're going to make mistakes, and it's going to be a lot harder to catch those mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. What you said about always constantly moving forward, I think that's part of my appeal in terms of that I improvise so much, is because even if it's not forward motion, I just want to be moving somewhere. Yeah. So even if it feels backwards, even if it feels like I had an off night, but all I did was just try and dig for material and riff, then to me, at least it felt new enough to me that I have like a phobia, an internal phobia about feeling redundant and repetitive. Mm-hmm. And so doing the same material tends to, again, ruin the experience for me. I am so precious about my own enjoyment of my art, because as soon as it stops being fun, why did I choose this life to begin with? And so it tends to be a bit fragile that way for me, because I tend to be just so precious and protective of it. And so like as soon as if I do the same set twice, to me it's not worth listening back on because I'm just living in the past. I'm just repeating myself. And I know, and I'm not saying that this is the way to do it, because I think I would be a profoundly better comedian if I actually reviewed my stuff and like really broke things down and I was meticulous about the wasted words, the word economy, and the spaces in between my jokes. Like that all really matters. But all I'm really looking for on stage and generally in life is a state of being that's completely authentic and present. And sometimes I worry that by over reviewing or by listening back too much, that I'm crafting around it too much. I don't want to be robotic. I don't want to be redundant, especially to myself. Mm-hmm. Does that make any sense? I'm not sure if I'm...
Yeah, but it's such a challenge for somebody like when I was doing burlesque. I mean, I think the same too. I'd have, 3 or 4 of my like signature acts, right? And everybody wanted to see them, those particular acts. And I'd be like, but most of the audience has already seen that act. But I forget who told me this, but they were like, okay, think about like your favorite song. How many times have you listened to your goddamn favorite song? You're not tired of it. So if somebody's seen your same burlesque act, I don't know, a max like 3 times, if they really love what you're doing, they're going to want to keep seeing it. And guess what? Every time you put that on stage, it's probably a little bit better. Again, I don't know anything about comedy, and maybe that repetitiveness actually takes away from the like, but to me, sometimes like crystallizing the idea by doing it a few times, seeing how the audience reacts to that move or that like whatever. I don't know. Same with like, I don't know. Do you redraw things? I literally don't know. Does it like you do an illustration, you kind of hate it, so you have to start over? Does that happen?
Yeah, that happens. We actually like me and my buddy Jeff, who teaches a lot of the classes with me. There's this one student we have that's like, he's awesome because he's always coming and trying to learn, but he's also frustrating because he takes that redraw step one step too far. I've redrawn a ton of stuff, man. Like the one drawing I finished last night, I think I did 4 redraws on it for various reasons. Like I would get to a point because I was trying something new. And so I would try something and because it was traditional, when I tried something and I was working with pens and it failed, it was like, okay, let's like start this thing over from scratch. And every once in a while I'll redraw like an old drawing that I did a long time ago. Just to see what I've learned and what new things I can bring to it. But you want to be very careful with it because like I was saying about that student of ours, the problem they had was they could never get past 5 pages of their comic because they would draw 5 pages, and over the course of drawing those 5 pages, by the time they got to the 5th page, they were a better artist, and they would want the first page to look like the 5th page, so they would go back to the start and start all over again. But then it was just a vicious cycle because, again, if you're improving as an artist always, that's going to happen forever. You just have to accept that sometimes your old work will just have to be that way. Like the mistakes or the things you don't like about it, sometimes you just have to leave them out there, which is what I was loving about what Al was saying. Like I always say, like we're kind of like always failing upwards. Like you create something and you put it out there in the world and you're like, like everyone put this on your fridge and love it. And then you go back and you're like, oh, I don't like that or that or that or that or that. And then so the next time you do something, you're like, I'm not going to make those mistakes. And then you'll make new mistakes, but you'll create something new and it'll be better than the last. And it's just like, as long as you're continually tumbling forward while failing, you're progressing as an artist.
Yeah, like I've always hated this saying, fake it till you make it. Because like, I don't know, maybe some people are faking it. I'm not faking it. I'm learning. I'm trying. I'm like desperately trying to be better. I'm not faking it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on that saying?
As far as faking it till you make it, there is one point I want to make. Sorry, can we put a pin in that one? Because I did want to answer your question about repetition and your audience seeing the same thing over and over again. So there is one point I wanted to make that like I wonder if comedy almost is different in the sense that like how often have you heard somebody say, "Oh, I went to see so and so live and they did all the same stuff that I'd heard before, so I'm probably not going to see them again." Like comedy hangs in this precarious balance where if you hear the same joke twice, like after you've heard it once, you've heard it. So only people with a kind of a special appreciation for a comedian or for the nuances of a joke, your regular person isn't gonna want to see you again if they hear the same joke twice. People are kind of sticklers about that sort of thing. Right. So that is sort of an additional fear that I have especially when I'm like warming up for a really important show or something like that, and I'm practicing, which kills my soul because I don't get to fuck around and explore, and I'm sticking to my script and I'm doing this material and I'm timing it out, like all the things that make it feel like fucking work to me. But the one thing that always hangs in the back of my mind that makes it worse is knowing that somebody who is excited to see me again after this year is going to come see me perform and see all the same shit again and be like, well, Alval never changes. People just assume. They're like, well, Alval's material is done. She's never going to write any new shit again. We're like sharks. We got to keep moving.
I guess comedy is that. I never thought about that. But like, I guess once you hear a joke, you've heard a joke. Once you know the punchline's coming, it's way different than a lot of other kind of art. That like, I don't know, like I can watch a movie a ton of times. I can, look at a painting a ton of times. I can watch a burlesque act a ton of times. But there's something about, knowing the punchline. A joke isn't the same the second time.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Unless you keep crafting it, but it's easier said than done. Once you get like a solid punchline, you're like, it's more additive than anything else. You're like, all right, I have my base. I know I have my reaction, and now I can just keep adding tags, they're called. Now I can just keep adding one thing after the next. So the jokes can be subtly different, but like once somebody's heard the premise and knows where you're going with it, you've lost the element of surprise, and nobody's going to be interested in that anymore.
Well, shit, comedy's hard. That's why I don't do it. Okay, amazing. Okay, so I have some more questions, but do you think we should take a look at a bit of your art first, both of you, and then we can go back to some more questions because I feel like I should give everybody a sense of what you do. So, and maybe we'll start with Dan. Al, I'm going to pull you out of the stream just for a second.
Okay, I'll fix my camera.
Let me bring up some of your stuff here. Okay, so first I'm going to show some of your pen sketches here. So we are looking on stream. I know you can't really see it necessarily, but you'll see it a second on stream if you have it in the background. So we're looking at a pen sketch now that you sent me. It looks like sort of this Celtic. This looks like the most D&D kind of work you've sent me. So one of them looks like a sort of Celtic character, and one looks like sort of like a blue demonish looking character. And then another is like this blonde, short-haired, again, demonish looking character. Tell me about these and what they are, what they mean to you, and everything like that. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess one thing I'll clarify is only the one is a pen sketch. The other two are, that's okay. They're very similar. So the blue one is all done with ballpoint pen.
Amazing.
And then the other two are part of a series that I'm actually going to be redoing because I don't feel like I did it well enough, called my Goddess series, which I did with Copic markers. And then I would scan them into a computer and basically I did them with gray markers and black ink, and then I would scan them into a computer and add digital colors so that I could be like, okay, it was like red hair or like this skin tone, stuff like that. I guess let's start with the blue pen sketch because that one's one of my favorites. That one will probably forever be like a milestone for me. It's called I'm Perfection. And it's all like squished together. I was an artist in residence at this local art gallery here in Edmonton. And we were doing an art show where all of the artists in residence were going to put together an art piece based on Persian rugs. And so we went and saw this guy's Persian rug collection that was going to be showcasing at the art gallery. And he talked to us about the rugs and the history of the rugs and the culture of the rugs. And I was, the thing that really struck me about the rugs, which was really cool, and I don't know why necessarily it stuck with me. It probably has something to do with why I find things beautiful. But he talked about how the rugs were handmade, and in the process of making the rugs, you had to basically do it thread by thread all the way down. And if one thread was out of place and you started the next row of threads, you could not change that thread. And so part of the beauty of Persian rugs, and they were passed down from generation to generation, was the imperfections in the rug, because it showed that it was handmade with love. And that made me think of how the people we meet in our life are like that. Like, I remember when I was still dating, oftentimes people always ask you who is your ideal person? Who is your ideal partner? And so often we create this idea in our mind of what our ideal partner is, and we create this perfection in our mind. And when you meet the right people in life, like whether they be friends, lovers, family, whatever, the part of the perfection of the people that you meet and love and you cherish is their imperfections, because no one is ever going to meet this standard you've put for yourself in your head. Like, you can put this list of things that you want in a person, but no one will ever meet that. And that's part of what makes them so beautiful, is the little things you didn't expect, the things that make them unique and the things that make them them and set them apart from everyone else. It's the little imperfections. And so that's why I wanted to do that piece in pen. I had been experimenting with pen drawings, but that was the first really big ballpoint pen sketch I did, because if I was going to do it in pen, that meant any line I drew had to stay.
Right.
If I made a mistake, it would have to stay. And that's a drawing that I'd look back at, and there's a ton of mistakes that I hate in that drawing, but I can't hate the drawing itself because of what it represented, and where I was at in my life and where I went from there. And then the other ones are the goddess pieces. And so one of those goddesses is Brigid, and the other goddess is It's Papaloto. And I wanted to kind of create like my visions of goddesses and just show very different like depictions of goddesses. And so what I did is I would find people that I felt suited the look of the goddess that I was trying to create a look for. And I would contact that person, get their permission to use their likeness as the goddess. And then they would, as part of the process, they would be given one of the originals, because I ended up with, through the process, there's 3 originals for each of those.
Yeah, cool.
So they would be given one of those originals. And
as in you hand drew 3 of them? 3 different ones?
Yeah, so I would do the pencil sketch, then I would ink that, so that was one. So you'd have the inked version, and then I would scan the inked version and copy it so that if I made a mistake, I could redo it over again.
Okay.
I would color it with Copics, and then so you had the Copic version, and then the color version never had an original because the color was digital. But I would always do a second complementary piece with each of them that was about like postcard size. And so that was the 3rd original. So yeah, each of those I created a look around based on the description of the goddess. And they all were framed by a central circular figure. And so one of the big reasons I wanted to change a lot of the ones that I did is life is constantly a progression, and I've always been about diversity. And I remember thinking in my head when I was first doing it that I'm not going to worry about race on any of the goddesses, because I'll just pick the person who looks and suits it the best. And in intention, I had good intentions. And then when I looked back at the 6, I was like, well, they all ended up white. So that was on me, where it was just like, okay, if I don't broaden myself and force myself to look outside of whatever I'm mostly exposed to, then you can still fall into these categories. So that's why I'm redoing the whole series, is because since then I've just come to learn more, and I think I can do better. And so that's I really love that series though, and I'm hoping to do to revisit that. And we've already got I think I've got the 6 picked out to start the series again. So some of those will be redone, and then others will just be set aside until I can find someone proper to redo the goddess with.
That's so cool. Yeah, I love I love, and we'll show some of your burlesque work in a bit too, but it's really
Mm-hmm.
valuable, I think, for a lot of people who've never seen themselves as a goddess or a work of art or whatever. So that I've seen a lot of your work, drawing people who are, express themselves as queer or as different body types or, different shades, colors, expressions, whatever. And I think that's so important because for a lot of people, they never see themselves as heroic or as a piece of art or as a god or goddess. And I think I'm really
Mm-hmm.
glad you brought that up is like, I think so many of us were brought up with, especially people who grew up in fantasy and things like that, our goddesses look like, Liv Tyler, or whatever,
Yeah.
like whatever, like white, thin, cis presenting goddesses. But there's so much more to that, especially when you think fantasy. Like,
Oh yeah.
there's no like it makes no sense to me that like fantasy can literally be anything. Like you can be anybody can be a god, their own. Everybody is somebody else's fantasy, I guess, is a better way of putting that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And not sexually per se, but also maybe, I don't know. I'm not here to judge.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that's really important, and I love that you brought up like, yeah, I made this mistake and I'm learning and I'm realizing, whoops, sometimes, and I think a lot of us make that mistake as somebody who's like, obviously very white. You're like, oh, I'm, not trying to cast these people, but these are the people that surround you. And I think, really
Yeah.
need to make the effort. It's not just like, I'm not choosing to cast this way or whatever. You have to like make the effort to make it about
Mm-hmm.
more people than the people who are just around you or the people you look like. So I'm really interested to see where that project goes. So you'll have to, I'll watch all your stuff anyway. I'll see it, but I'm super excited to see that. Okay, I'm gonna switch.
Thank you.
I still have more stuff of yours to show, but we'll do one by one. So I will
Okay.
run this. Okay, let me see. Hide this one. Gonna nail this. Did it. And I'll bring Val back on. Hello.
Hi.
And I will show
Oh
a piece
no,
of
the
your work, and
lighting.
Dan, I'll pull you off so you can like, I don't know, pick
Mm-hmm.
your nose or have a drink or whatever it is you need to do.
I,
Okay.
I thought I
Val.
fixed the lighting, but
No, it's good. It's
all I have
perfect.
is my window, and
It's golden hour. You're positively glowing. I love
I
it.
don't know. Yeah.
Okay, well, I have to, well, okay, so I have that video you sent me, or you can do your premiere song. Which one do you want to do first? I'd love to be able to show both.
Um. Well, what does Twitch want? Do you guys want me to sing, or do you want to see a really goofy video that my friend and I made together?
Answer
I
quick.
al- I already probably know what the answer is going to be.
I mean, ideally both. Literally both are like 2 minutes, so it's more about which one first.
Okay, play the video.
Okay, give me your little intro about it though.
Okay. So way back in the era of E-Bombs World, in the early ages of the internet, I don't know if anyone's a fan of Homestar Runner, but it used to be this cartoon on the internet before like YouTube really was a thing, before YouTube was anything, where like these silly cartoons and these characters used to exist. And my friends and I, when I met my best friends in university, we bonded over like our history of our childhood love for Strong Bad and Homestar Runner. And my friend and I, one night, spontaneously put together one of those old school videos of it used to be a stand-up premise of mine that was like, what if you were roommates with a dragon? But doesn't that sound amazing? But what if the dragon was a shitty roommate and it wasn't all you cracked up dragons to be? So this is basically what we came up with.
Okay, I'm gonna play it, and I'm not gonna pull us out. So if you laugh or make cracks in the background, Alval, audience will hear you. So
Okay.
get ready for Lounge Dragon.
Hey man, what's up?
What's going on, man?
Oh, not much. I heard you and your girlfriend had a messy breakup.
Oh, yeah. I had to find a new roomie to cover last month's rent.
How did that go? What's he like?
Well, he's a dragon.
What, a dragon? That's probably the coolest thing I ever heard, I think. What's he like?
Man, Call of Duty sucks.
Yeah, he's not the best roommate.
I ate all the white packets from the toaster strudel box. What the band called?
What did they say?
I don't know.
So, have you looked for a job at all today?
My uncle is hooking me up as the foreman at Peak Frame. Just waiting on the paperwork and stuff. A lot of red tape. I think I need to throw up.
Are you gonna throw
The
up?
sink is missing.
Okay, dude, the bank left a message saying they froze my account. Okay, I'm gonna go find out why. I'll be back in an hour.
Yeah, maybe pick up more of those white toaster strudel packets.
So what are you gonna do?
I think I'm just gonna move out.
Hey, what are you two dudes talking about over there? Did you pick up more of those white packets?
So that was the Twitch premiere of Lounge Dragon.
Oh man.
True story of how this happened. I was like, "Oh, Val, do you have any like video that you own that I'm like not gonna get, like a copyright strike that I can play?" And she was like, "Yeah, I got this for you." Yeah, it was good. It was
Yeah.
good.
I feel so whimsically about this video because it's so silly and basic, and it harkens back to an age where, like, I've always thought honestly that things done with poor quality things are just funnier. You know what I mean? Like, Black Dynamite is one of my favorite movies. And I just remember one thing very distinctly about, there's a moment where somebody says something and the boom mic just kind of like enters the frame, and then the actor sort of like looks up at it and then keeps going. I love fourth wall breaking, dumb like mistakes that are just sort of left in. And that's what I love about that video. It's just so poorly done, but we laughed our way through it.
So one of my favorite moments in the whole thing is like where like it's a scene looking at the dragon, and then just for like 1 second it like flashes back to the two roommates, and then flash just for no reason. It feels like the boom moment where it's like, did that? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
I love
good.
it. I learned Flash in a night. I barely learned it. So that's why I did all the animating. And that's why when the roommate leaves, his lower half just doesn't exist. He just comes off. And when I did that, it was an accident. We were like, that's amazing. Just leave it. It's hilarious.
Leave it in. Yeah. Even like when I was doing like live theater and burlesque, like the best moments that people remember, like this moment we talk about forever. We were doing like a live theater show with burlesque in it. And one of the scenes, like somebody tossed their bra and it got stuck in the chandelier overhead. But we needed that bra again later in the play for another costume. So we just somebody came on and like pretended they were a janitor for like a minute. Was like, gonna have to clean this bra now. Just like the dumbest moment, but it was. This is why I love like live stuff and stupid shit that you like have no idea. Like, it'll never happen again. It happened that one time, or it's dumb, but you're like, leave it because it's so magic. Like yeah, it's so good.
Yeah. As a comedian, like happy accidents on stage are gifts. And like if you're the type of comedian who just sticks to your act verbatim, like I think you're missing out on a world of these beautiful, precious moments that are just it's so intimate to me that you only share this experience with the people in that room, in that moment, and then never again. Like, I think there's something romantic about it. I love it.
It's like there's nothing like live performance. There really isn't. Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime, like, everything is an opportunity. Every time you fuck up a word and acknowledge it, every time you fuck up a joke. One time I went in, like, this is going to sound bad, and it kind of was, but I was doing crowd work, and I noticed one person was turned facing the wall at the back. One person was turning their back to me. And so I riffed a thing that I was like, this guy hates me. He hasn't even turned around to acknowledge my existence. How weird is it that he and I are the only two people facing in the same direction in this room? I just riffed on it, and then eventually his friend at the table was like, "He's blind," and so
no.
I spent all this time. I went off for a little bit until they finally corrected me, and the guy took it in stride, and like it turned into this hilarious, magical, well, fuck me moment that was just, it was amazing. It was so fun.
That sounds, that's like, you can't plan that. You can never repeat it, but it's so magic, especially if people play along, like, mwah. And chat, I'm not allowed to do burlesque on Twitch, but maybe one day I will get back on a burlesque stage again. I'm having conflicting feelings about that, so we'll talk about that in another show. But let me switch again. I have one more sort of set of art I want to show from each of you before we have to lose. Val has a gig tonight that she has to get to, so we'll keep this moving on. We'll bring Dan back on, and Val go, pee or do whatever it is you need to do. Okay. So I kind of want to show, because this is how I met Dan in Edmonton, Alberta, a couple years ago. I don't remember how many, maybe 5 years ago now we met in person? Something like that, at the Edmonton Burlesque Festival. And he saw my show, and we met before I saw the drawing, but like he did this amazing burlesque drawing of me. You're not going to see that one, although I guess I should have now, in hindsight, should have shown that one. But I'm going to show a couple of these burlesque drawings of yours. So this is Beau Creep and Dirty Martini. So Dirty Martini is actually one of the originators of the sort of neo-burlesque movement from, 25 years ago probably, who started doing it in the States. And she was one of my early sort of burlesque inspirations. So I love that that is Dirty, right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank goodness. I was going to be like, oh, that'd be so embarrassing if it wasn't. And then Beau Creep is from Edmonton, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so tell me about your burlesque drawings a little more, maybe about these two particularly.
Burlesque was, it was such a revelation for me to find. The whole reason I started drawing burlesque was basically just like, I needed something to do on a really late night, and that didn't lead to me drawing burlesque, but eventually it led to me drawing burlesque. I remember when I first started coming to burlesque shows, and it was Beau that actually invited me to the burlesque festival because he had seen my drawings of mostly, at that point, strippers. I was drawing strippers a lot, and Beau really loved my work and invited me to come to the Edmonton Burlesque Festival, and I think that was the year that I drew you.
Oh, that was your first festival drawing thing?
I think it was. I'm trying to remember if it was for sure, but it
was a bit ago.
It might be, but anyways, and it was just like burlesque. As I was drawing all of the strippers, they had constantly been telling me, like, go draw burlesque, because everything that we talked about when I was talking to the strippers about what I loved about their dance or their costume or their like routine, we basically talked about burlesque. And it was one friend of mine, Cherry, that told me, like, hunt down burlesque. Like, everything you love is burlesque. And so sure enough, when I got to burlesque, it was everything that I loved, but then it ended up being even so much more. And one of the big points that really sold it to me was the fact that, why am I blanking on her name? Grand Beaver of Burlesque in Canada.
Oh, Judith Stone.
Judith Stein. Thank you. When Judith went up to do her act, it was absolutely incredible, because I don't know how old Judith is right now, and I'm sure she would not want me to say how old she is now.
Anyway, maybe 80s.
Yeah. And she got on that stage as a legend of burlesque and just had every single person in that crowd like on the edge of their seat, like just in the palm of her hand. And she controlled that crowd so well, and she had everything that comes along with being a woman of that age. And not a single person in that crowd had anything to say with it, because she owned that crowd. That was her stage. That was her performance. This was her art. And we were all there to just love and appreciate it, and love and appreciate who she was and what she was presenting to us. And that was like the biggest moment that sold me on burlesque, because it was just like, this is what I could never really fully explain what I loved in my artwork, other than loving to tell stories. But there was always a part of me that loved just doing illustrations. And when people would ask me, like, what do you love to draw? I'm kind of all over the place. And I could never really like say what it was. And after that, that's when I've started now saying that, like, I think the world is pretty beautiful. It's hard to see sometimes. And so what I love to do is I love to capture the different beauty in the world. And burlesque is one of the, like, probably to me is one of the epitome of that art form, of showing that there's beauty in everything. And there's beauty in every voice, there's beauty in every body, there's beauty in every person. And so when I draw burlesque, that's what I want to do, is basically enhance and, like, in some way, like, shout out my love of burlesque through my drawings, and show, like, this is why you should care about burlesque. This is why you should love burlesque. This is why burlesque should be way bigger than it is. There are lots of people that love burlesque, but I feel there should be way more. I can't remember exactly what the first question or what the start of that question was, but that's where I ended up with it.
It was that. Yeah. And like, I just love the way I've seen so much of your burlesque stuff. Obviously, that's how I started, that was my entrance way into your art. And just the way, I love the way you see people. Do you know what I mean? Like, you capture this certain, like, even, not to bring it back to me, but why not? Just like that little, obviously the original drawing you did of me doing my, like, that's my most important piece that you originally drew. Like, I do this piece to a spoken word piece. It's a Canadian poet laureate who did this spoken word thing, and I do a burlesque act to it. My favorite act. Anyways, and Dan drew it, but there was something about, like, you really, and I think this is your specialty, and you brought it up a little bit, but something about, like, capturing, like, movement and the way people carry themselves. I think you can spot these people. Like, I've seen a lot of these people perform, and the way you draw them, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's that move they do, or that's that, like, twist they do, or that's that thing. And, like, I love that you see, like, you saw me, you didn't even know me when you drew me. Like, we met later, I think, but when you were actually doing the drawing.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, that's what my body does. Like, and I think it's so fascinating that you can do that after seeing somebody on a stage 100 feet away for 5 minutes. Like, I don't know. Like, do you, I guess, okay, we don't have to, I thought I'd run out of questions. I have so many more, but in, a few sentences or less, how do you, I don't know even what the question is, but how do you, like, do that? How do you see people, or what strikes you maybe first about people that makes you want to draw that moment? Oh, that's them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess this is where we start to get into that point of, like, where we were talking about, like, where does inspiration come from? And with the burlesque acts, I won't know. Like, it's never the same in any burlesque act what the moment is. Like, and there's been times where, like, I'll forget while watching a burlesque act that I'm like, oh yeah, I'm gonna draw this,
right?
Because I'll, like, get to the end and then I'm like, oh crap, I did nothing. Like, I was just enthralled with the dance. So I'll have to, like, try and, like, whatever moment stuck in my mind, I'll have to go with, like, okay, this is the moment I most, like, vividly remember. But typically when I'm watching it, it will just be something. There will be something that'll happen on stage, and I'm like, that's like that's the moment in this act that is in no other act. Like that's the moment that defines this act for me, or that's the moment that really caught my attention. And it can be something as simple as like a facial expression, or just like whatever the, like, especially the more comedy acts, like I'll typically pick more the like amusing part, like the punchlines basically. But a lot of times it's just like there's a certain movement. And I've always loved movement in my artwork. I've loved like movement of all different kinds. And like the burlesque act drawings, especially like the one I did of you, is like the epitome of those, because those ones were always done at the show live. Whereas the ones that are scrolling by right now were me trying to bring the ones I do at the show live further, and push them even further along. Because one of the big things that always tortured me about the ones that I did live at the shows is I really do love capturing the specific performer. And when I'm doing it in like 15 minutes, I can only go like, okay, this person, I had like 4 body types for like feminine and masculine. And it was just like, which of these 4 body types are you closest to? And that's what you got. And then everyone got the same face. And that frustrated the heck out of me, where I'm just like, no, I know I can capture each person's like personality, each person's look, each person's very distinct body from anyone else, and show that in movement. And like, especially because burlesque is so full of diverse bodies, getting that movement in all of the different bodies and showing how like different bodies do different movements, and how like beautiful and cool it is with different bodies doing different things, and how varied it gets, is really fun and fascinating for me. So that's kind of where my inspiration basically comes from, is trying to capture those different beautiful moments.
And I imagine talking so much about movement, and then I'm going to get Val to come on and play her piece, and then probably have to say goodbye to her, but I have a few more questions for you if that's okay. But I imagine seeing a burlesque show is an amazing study in movement and the way bodies move and can do things, because there's so many shapes, sizes, everything, and what they're doing on stage is so different, because there's some people who are, you know, trained in dance and some people who are not at all, but they're all there to inherently show their body in some way or another, in all the range that burlesque is. So it must be so interesting for you for it to be a study in bodies.
Oh yeah, I've learned so much in posing, movement, body types. Like the burlesque drawings are partially my like practice, and like my exercise as an artist. Like these are my routines that I do to help me improve as an artist. It's helped me a ton.
That's so cool. I love that. Okay, I'm gonna switch you off again. And I'll give you. Oh, you added a headband.
I added a headband for the rock and roll portion.
Okay, so we'll switch off here. So this is our. Well, this is an adult conversation, but we've got a premiere of a party song here tonight on Show and Tell with Stella. Val is going to give us a little ditty. Go give us a little intro if you want to, and then go on.
You know what? All you really need to know, and you'll find out pretty quickly, that this song is called the Pansexual Anthem. And this goes out to everyone.
Here for it.
Everyone who loves to do a sex. I'm debuting it tonight, so bear with me if there are any mistakes. It's brand new. Here we go. Sexy lady looking fine as can be, wearing your Saturday best. If you end up going home with me, I've got one simple request. Sit on my face, you sexy lady, you nasty lady, you freaky lady. Sit on my face, you freaky lady, let's get freaky tonight. Sit on my face, you sexy lady, you nasty lady, you freaky lady. Sit on my face, you freaky lady, let's get freaky tonight. verse 2. Here we go. Hey, sexy fella, what you doing alone? You're a heartbreaker, it's true. If you wanna join me back at my home, there's one thing that I ask of you, and you probably know what that is now. Sit on my face, you sexy fella, you nasty fella, you freaky fella. Sit on my face, you freaky fella, and let's get freaky tonight. Sit on my face, you sexy fella, you nasty fella, you freaky fella. Sit on my face, you freaky fella, and let's get freaky tonight. Here we go. Don't care what you got, just put it on me. Put mine on you, and baby, let's have a gas. Fact is that everyone gets hungry, and everybody's got an ass. And then I do a solo here, which, you know, I don't have the instrument for it, like maybe a harmonica or something like that, but we'll see. Okay. So I've covered men, I've covered women, but there's one group that clearly I've left out up to this point, and I wouldn't be a pansexual if I didn't include them. So here we go. Coming in hot. Fine as non-binary, gender fluid, and trans. You looking foxy as hell. Hope you don't mind my very forward advance. But there's one thing I receive well, and you know what that is? Sit on my face, you sexy person, you nasty person, you freaky person. Sit on my face, you freaky person, let's get freaky tonight. Everybody in the orgy. Sit on my face, you sexy people, you nasty people, you freaky people. Sit on my face, you freaky people, let's get freaky tonight.
That's my new favorite song, and I'm going to do my next burlesque act to it.
Yeah? Do you want to do it live? I'll play along.
Do I friggin' ever. That sounds like, you know, I've been, okay, this is a whole other conversation, but I've been struggling with, like, sexuality over the pandemic. It's hard to, like, when you don't see people, you kind of forget people and bodies. But that, like, made me feel like I kind of want to jam with people. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's dare I say it's a bop. It's got some bop to it.
We need like the harmonica solo though in the middle for sure.
I agree. Yeah, I need to learn. Or the tuba or something I can put my mouth on off to the side that isn't an ass. I could play an ass as the solo.
I mean, that would be a great burlesque act actually. Like kind of circus vibe. You know, very like, yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm going to bring both of you back on, and this is what I propose. Oh, do we like this angle? I don't know if I like these, like, skinny, like, frames. I don't know. Do we like this?
Maybe.
No, I don't know. No, I don't like that.
It works for me. Okay.
Let's do this one. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so I want to kind of I have like one or two more questions. I'm going to try and get Val out of here in like 8 minutes because she's so popular. But I want to ask this one question to both of you, and I think this is like something that I struggle with or I'm interested in or whatever, both. I'd love to know, and maybe we'll start with Val just in case. When was the first time you fell in love with your art form and like knew you wanted to be a part of that? And also, when did you realize you were good at it?
That
question's going to be for both of you, but yeah.
First of all, I want to say you've been asking some very insightful questions. So kudos to you. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me tonight. Secondly, to answer your question, I would have said like high school is when I really got into stand-up, but reaching even further back, I used to be a class clown always, but I used to be the one who, like, I had a friend named Kieran who was the loud class clown who got like all the glory and all the laughs, but I would be one of the people who would make Kieran laugh. And he had one of those laughs that like made everybody else laugh. That was part of his character. He had a crazy laugh. So making Kieran laugh made everybody else laugh. And me being kind of a sort of a shy kid to start, that was sort of my in, where I was like, I like this laughter thing, and being like the one to knock the first domino over kind of thing. And secondly, there was a talent show in like grade 4 where a teacher picked me and my best friend Alex to do Abbott and Costello's Who's on First, and we just did it, and
Wow.
and it kicked ass, and we got a huge response, and we did it the following year. We did the same act 2 years in a row, and at that point I was like, I was just hooked to the feeling of laughter and getting an audience to give you their undivided attention.
I will say, okay, I said one last question, but I do have one more for you, and I really want to get this one out if I can. First of all, so the fact that you say it's really funny, like your friend who made people laugh by laughing, that's you a lot of times on your podcast. I have to say, sometimes when you laugh at yourself is the times when I laugh the most too when I'm listening to your podcast. Oh, let me throw in your links too, and tell me this real quick. Yeah, thanks for the sound. Okay, so I want to know, what the fuck does podgis or algis mean? Where does that come from?
So my real name is Algis, Algis.
Is it really? Oh
Yep.
shit, I had no idea. Okay.
It's a very popular male name in Lithuania, and it's what I'm named after my dad. So long story short, basically it's been a forever running joke with myself and my friends that whenever I feel something, the best way to express it is by saying whatever emotion it is and just tagging gis at the end. So I don't have to explain myself. Whenever I eat too much, I'm bloat gis. Whenever I'm sad and all I want to do is lay down face first on the floor, I'm floor gis, and everybody knows that I'm depressed because I'm just, laying on the floor. I'm floor gis. So basically everything I do, the joke has become everything I do, I add gis at the end just to explain that this is my state of mind and this is what I'm doing right now. So
Okay, amazing. Because you're always referencing it on the podcast, and I was like, what is this even? What? I love it. I get it. Okay, Val, I put your links, I put your Twitter, and I put where to find Algis the podcast on Apple, because that's the easiest link I could find, and I highly recommend checking out Podgis. Honestly, it's so wholesome, and I love it, and you just gotta cheer for it, and definitely do that. I linked her Twitter as well, so definitely follow her, and you'll have to follow up and send me, as soon as your new comedy special, holy shit, you're so popular, is on the internet somewhere. Send me the link so that I can share it with my peeps.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you so much for hanging out and wish you breaking all the legs and hearts tonight.
Thank you so much for having me. Stella, I adore you. I think you're super talented. Dan, it was awesome meeting you, and thanks for sharing your art. Your art is breathtaking, for real. It's amazing. And I loved hearing you talk about it too. Really super insightful stuff. And I just like hearing about that kind of thing.
Right?
So.
Isn't it fun to just get
Thank you,
random
Al.
arts people together and smash them together and talk about making stuff? For me, it makes me excited to make stuff. And
Yeah.
to see other people make stuff and know that we're all still trying to do this thing despite the world crumbling around us. Not to be too dramatic, but that's sort of what I do.
Yeah.
But yes, Alval, go, I don't know, put your lipstick on, get in your Uber, have an amazing gig tonight, and I will talk to you very soon.
Thank you. One more thing,
Yeah,
real quick.
Yeah.
If you want to catch my episode of the stand-up show with John Doerr, it is on CTV Comedy. It is going to be airing at 10:30 p.m. on August 23rd. Monday, August 23rd, 10:30 p.m. That is when my episode of
Is it on ctv.ca? Can you catch it live?
on
or?
CTV Comedy. I don't know if it's I forget.
Comedy,
They didn't say.
August 23rd?
23rd at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
10:30 p.m.
Adjust accordingly, Dan.
Done. Yeah, adjust your time zone.
Yeah.
All you in Alberta and beyond.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's a
amazing.
good time
Thank
for
you
me. I
so
think
much,
that's
Dan.
8:30.
If you have 10 more minutes for me, I got a couple more questions for you.
Yeah.
We should do a watch party. I'll follow up. We'll talk about it.
Okay,
Get to your
cool.
gig. We'll talk.
And thank you to everybody for tuning in. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you
so
so
much.
much.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
Okay. This is so great. I honestly thought that remember gifts. Oh, that's so good. Okay. I thought I might run out of questions, but I still have like a whole list. But I
Yeah.
will ask you the question I just asked Al before she left. Do you remember when you fell in love with particularly illustration? And then when
Mhm.
that moment, we all hate to talk about like being good at things. I know it's maybe hard for some of us, but like, do you have that moment where you're like, oh, maybe I'm good at this thing. Maybe I can do this thing.
So I guess to do the when did I know I was good at this thing? That one I'll do first just because it's more weird for me.
Hmm.
I had like uh I I had this like hyper version of what I see in a lot of the kids that I teach, where when I first started drawing as a kid, like because I've been drawing, the joke is that I've been drawing since I can pick up a pencil, but it's
Right.
true. As soon as I could pick up a pencil, I've been drawing and just like creating art nonstop. I don't know if there's been like maybe more than like 30 days in my life where I haven't drawn altogether. But I like had the just the absolute confidence of youth and ignorance that when I was young, it was just there was no question in my mind. It was just like a decision between being a dinosaur and a comic book artist. And as soon as I was like, okay, dinosaurs out, I'll be a comic book artist because that I'm destined to do that.
Right.
And I carried that confidence for so much of my life of just like this completely unfounded confidence in myself. And I carried it all the way probably until like I was 15. Like basically I had the confidence of like a cis white like male
Young
who
man.
has
Sure.
had the world placed at their feet. And then it wasn't until I was older that all of a sudden like my world started expanding and I started like looking at myself and just like the anxiety that comes in with being a creative person. All of a sudden I was just like, whoa, I'm terrible. Like, oh my God, like everything I do is bad. Everything I say is terrible. Like I like suddenly reality hit me with like a huge force. And then it wasn't until much later that I like gained back that confidence. Like I still look back to the confidence I had then of just like, I wish I could gain that confidence back without having that like ignorance back.
Yeah.
Because yeah, there was like the amount of stuff I accomplished when I was 16 and thought like I had the world at my feet. I got a lot of stuff done, but now that I'm like reality has set in, it's definitely been more of a detriment. But I love it because I'm more aware. So I don't know what afterwards. Probably, I think what it was afterwards was bouncing off of other artists. Like I'm like you, where I need to bounce off of other artists to be to like really push myself. Like I have a core friend group that I like constantly talk to, and we constantly like show each other our work, and that really drives me. That like friendly competition of just like, oh, I see what you're doing, I want to do the same, and I want to push myself. And the thing that I think eventually got in my head of like, oh, maybe I am really good at this. Like maybe I can go back to that little bit of confidence I had when I was young was the fact that a lot of my artistic friends would come to me to learn stuff.
Yeah.
So they would ask me like, how do you draw this? Or how do you do that? Or how do you do? And then once I saw that like these other people that I was looking up to were coming to me for advice, I was like, okay, maybe there's something there. And then for what drove me into art, what was the second part of the question?
What made you fall in love with the art form? Like, do you remember the first
Oh.
comic you read or something that you're like, this is so fucking cool? Like,
It would have been Calvin and Hobbes. Like,
that makes
Calvin and
sense.
Hobbes was what? Yeah, I loved Calvin and Hobbes. I never read like an actual like, for a guy that does a lot of superhero stuff. I never read a superhero comic until I got my license at like 16, and then I went to a comic book shop. But the thing that really I think drove me to comics is, and this will come as a shock to anyone that just hears my voice in general or knows me in general. In my family growing up, the loudest person gets the floor. Like we are a very loud family, and whoever talks the loudest gets the floor.
Huh.
And I'm the quiet one in my family. So I never got the floor, but I noticed like when I was young, and I always had stories that I was creating whenever I would draw something. Like if I would draw a frog, there was a story behind the frog, and I wanted to tell you that story. But I noticed that a lot, that like if I drew something and distracted you with a pretty picture, you were more likely to listen to me. And so eventually I think that just snowballed into comics, where it's just like, well, if I just draw the story, then I don't have to explain the story and no one has to tell me to be quiet. So that's kind of where it came from. Is just I'm a very storytelling type person, and I love to create and draw and visuals. So they just merged together and came out as comics.
That's so interesting. I actually would have to me you seem like pretty quiet of a person. So to hear that you come from a very loud family is actually a little bit surprising to me, that you are like the quiet one. Do you have a big I didn't have time to bring this up, but
Yeah.
Alval comes from a huge family. I think she has like 5 brothers and sisters. Do you have many siblings or?
Yeah, I'd be close then with Alval.
Mm.
I have 4 brothers and sisters.
Oh shit. Yeah.
But then my extended family is like insanity. I can't remember how many. The last time we counted, and that was before like all the people of my generation started having kids. We were at like, just with cousins, we were at like over 100 of us.
Oh my god.
So yeah, there's a lot of us.
Amazing.
And that's just on my mom's side, not my dad's side.
Shit. Yeah, that's a lot.
But yeah.
That's a lot. Amazing. Okay, I think I have one more thing. Okay. I would like to know, this is the last question of the night. I would love to know, what is the most favorite thing you've ever made? What is the thing you're most proud of? I don't know if I have that. I wish I had it to show, but maybe I can tweet it out later for anybody watching. But like, do you have, or thing you did, or thing you've accomplished, or I know you have something coming up. Do you think that's going to be your proudest thing? Or what's your like, oh, if you were meeting somebody, you're like, this is the thing that I did, and I'm happy I left this behind. If I were to die tomorrow, I hope this represents me. That got a little morbid at the end there, but you know what I mean?
No, yeah, that's a lot. Like I think about that a lot with my work, because to me, I'd much rather leave a legacy behind than anything else.
Yeah.
And I'd want to pass, like I always say, as artists, anyone that's an artist, you were inspired by someone. And so it's our duty to pass that inspiration on to the next generation. Like as an artist, it's just up to you to make sure to inspire others. And so I think about that a lot. And like, what things of mine am I most proud of, and do I feel like pass on that inspiration the most? And so I think the thing I'm most proud of is not an art piece at all. It's my camps, and I hope to expand those camps. I have we've talked about it a lot this past week, because this was the first merger of those camps into more of what I wanted them to be, and what I'm hoping them to be. Like the whole idea of the camps for me sparked from, and the camps are created by many different people. Like Tanya is the backbone of our organization. Without it, she is that person that does all of the stuff that is not the creative part.
Right.
So she is the whole reason those camps exist. But when we created those, what made me want to do it is when I was growing up, we did cow camps. And so when we were little, we didn't go to like summer camp. You went to cow camps, and it was a week of doing a cattle show. Yeah. Okay. It's a very foreign thing to anyone that is not in
rural
anyone
towns.
That's not in agriculture.
Yeah, right.
But basically, so my family is professional. Like they raise purebred black and red Angus cattle, and they show cattle. That's how we make our money. We're basically the high end cattle. We create the top genetics that go into all of the cattle around the world.
Oh, shit.
And so you show your cattle to like present them, and there's prizes and blah 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 blah. But my grandpa started these cow camps, which were basically kids' versions of those shows, to basically start training the next generation of farmers like how to farm. Because farming, there is no formal training for farming. You don't go to school to
Right.
become a farmer. Like it's knowledge that's passed on. And so the way the kids camp or the cow camps work is when you go to them, the age range runs from 5 years old to 21. But once you're 22, you cannot participate in the cattle show. And that's not just like you can't enter as a person in this little, like these cow camps. You can't help someone. So if I'm a parent and I take my 5-year-old there, I can't help them.
Right.
And so what we do is it's up to the older generation at the cow camp. So the kids that are like 16 and above to take care of the young kids. And they guide them through. So a little kid will be paired with an old kid, and it's up to the older kid to teach the young kid. And then there's different competitions. So you show your cattle like the adults do, but there's also print marketing competitions. So everyone goes into competition where we teach you, like, this is how you create a print ad for your cattle, and you compete in it. And then there's a sales talk competition, and we teach you how to sell yourself in various different situations. And there's competition, and there's judging competitions. So there's we make little events and games and learning experiences out of the entire process of cattle shows, or of raising cattle. And even though I don't do anything with cattle anymore, I carried so much of what I learned there
Right.
into my adult life, and I want that for everyone, especially in the arts, because the arts is in a very similar situation. There's so many art forms that don't have really great formal training.
Yep.
And when they do have great formal training, it's more focused on the skill of the art form. So if I can go to school to learn how to draw comics, but then no one will teach me how to sell comics.
Yeah.
No one will teach me how to network. No one will teach me how to set up a booth at a convention and talk to customers, and how to engage with an audience, and how to develop a relationship with them. And so that's what we want to do with the comic camps and with these art camps. And so that's always been my goal. And we've done them for 7 years. And now we're finally doing it where all of the age ranges are together. And now is when I want to start implementing, having the older kids take care of the younger kids.
Yeah.
And work with them, and start developing situations where okay, we're going to learn how to network. We're going to learn how to listen to each other. We're going to learn how to work collaboratively. We're going to learn how to take someone's idea and turn it into something physical. And that's what I'm most proud of. And I hope that I will continue to be proud of, and I will continue to help develop it with Jeff Martin, who is one of my fellow teachers that helps me create most of the programs, and Tanya, who is our backbone that basically takes all of our creative ideas and goes here, this is what you need to do now. Here's your schedule. Here's what we will. She's the one that takes in all of the information and all of the stuff that we give her and makes it to a working form. So that's what I'm most proud of. As an art piece, that's constantly changing.
Right.
The I'm Perfection is probably that one's going to stick with me forever.
Right.
And part of that is just because at the same time that I made it is when I met my girlfriend, who I will be with forever.
Aw.
She is the completion to me. So it's just to make that piece and have that intent behind it, and then at the same time finding the person that completed the rest of my life, was just that's going to be a perfect piece for me forever. I will never not look back at that piece and think that there was any way to improve upon it. But yeah, it's constantly changing. There's different things that are constantly
Sure.
The top of the pile is mostly whatever I most recently did.
It's like the shark, right? You're just keep moving
Yeah.
forward. And yeah, if you're not, obviously, as you move along as an artist, as a creative person, you're always gonna create stuff that maybe you're less proud of. But if sort of
Yeah.
a year from now, you're not making something that's slightly better than a year previous to now, what are you doing, and how are you improving yourself? And I don't know, I totally think that, yeah, the thing that you're working on next should be your favorite project. you know?
Yeah.
For the most part. There's always exceptions because we all need to do things for money sometimes. And sometimes we need to just take on a thing
yeah.
that's going to pay the bills and not maybe be our favorite project. But for the most part, you know, yeah, like the next thing should be your best thing, right? Like that's definitely what I think too.
Yeah.
But on that note, is there anything left? I'm gonna throw your Twitch, which I love your
Okay.
Twitch. It's so chill and awesome and very like mellow, and the vibe is so nice. So you can go and watch Dan draw and talk to his like your like fan base is lovely and so nice. And then I'm also just putting your Twitter in here, but you're basically
thank you.
everywhere on the internet as Smashed Head, more or
Yeah.
less, right? So
Yeah,
definitely-
either
yeah.
smashed head is one word or there's a underscore in between, one or the other.
So definitely hit follow on that Twitch and follow all his stuff because it's really inspiring, and you're just like such a like a chill light. There's so much on Twitch that I find really hard to actually watch. I got to be honest. Like that's I think that why it took me so long to come around to like streaming, because a lot of it to me feels really forceful and loud and kind of a lot. But you're like a lot of the Twitch people I follow are people like you, or people who like paint minis, or people who play like chill games, you know, and just talk. Like it's so nice, and it's like putting on a comforting podcast like Alval's podcast or something that you just want to like. At the end of the day, a lot of the entertainment I take in, I want it to be like calming, you know, and I find like your content is very much that. So I appreciate
thank
that. Is there anything else you want to tell the folks who are watching to look out for on your behalf?
No, usually I'd show off Hobbs, but she left me because Erica got here. So the brief little cameo she had at the very start of the stream, unfortunately, will be the only cameo from Hobbs today.
And Hobbs is the best, and almost always has their own cam, which is like my favorite on your stream. I'm running out of words.
She's way more popular than me.
I mean,
way
look,
more popular than
I
me.
need to get it familiar so I can have more people come and watch my streams. I'm gonna get a cat eventually. But thank you so much for hanging out. I really, really appreciate your time. This was like so valuable for me, and I was really excited to like speak with both of you. And I thank you very much, and can't wait to keep following your stuff. You were awesome. And everybody in chat, I'm gonna hang out for 1 second and tell you a bit more about what's coming up for me. But everybody, please, like wherever you are in the world, give a little applause to both Dan and Alval for joining me today and opening your hearts. I really appreciate you so much, Dan. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, everyone. We're just about to call it a night. That was so awesome, and I appreciate everyone hanging out in chat. I know there's some questions there that I didn't get a chance to answer, a lot of them about burlesque and stuff. So we've got a few more minutes here. If you have any questions for me, throw them in chat right now. I'm going to show you a little 30-second trailer about who's going to be on next week, who I'm really excited about. And as I do that, let me know if there's any questions you want me to answer, and then I will sign off. So check this out. This is who's going to be on next week. So that's next week. We've got the lovely Ashley and the lovely Alice joining us, Alice is an amazing comedy producer, performer from Toronto, and Ashley creates all kinds of stuff. She facilitates a lot of workshops and growth experiences for queer people of color in Toronto, and does all kinds of stuff. Like those people who are like, you know, how do I describe you? I'm just going to put multidisciplinary because so many things. But again, I appreciate you all so much for hanging out. This was a bit of an experiment for me and kind of a thing that I've been wanting to do, and I hope that it was fun for everyone in chat. I will say we'll be back next week, next Wednesday, for part 2 of thank you so much, the D&D I'm starting to lose my words. I've been talking too long. The D&D experience adventure that we started last night with, two people who have been hanging out in chat tonight, Hope for TTRPGs and Play Nerd Allies, will be back next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Next Thursday at 7 o'clock, as you saw, I'll be back with 2 other artists talking. Your character might die. Split the party. It was your idea. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate you coming on. I love creators. I love artists. I love people who just look at the world in a slightly different way. And it really gives me the vibes to talk to these people and makes me so excited. And I missed everybody over the pandemic. And I made a bunch of new virtual friends over the pandemic. So thank you. Yes. I'll be posting the VOD. It's up there. Anyways, thank you all so much. If you, okay, I'm going to do a small promo. I feel bad about doing it, but I'm going to do it. Thank you for my new sub tonight, Play Nerd Allies. I'm going to send you the link to, I have a subscriber, supporter only Discord where I'm going to share stuff about all the lore and maps and characters and stuff from my games. I'm going to share more art from the people I interview on here, and I'm going to be there for chats and anything that anybody wants to talk to me about. So sub or support me on Ko-Fi for that. Otherwise, I think that's it, y'all. Have an amazing weekend. I really appreciate you all